All right, folks, we're a few days away from the BAFTA Awards, so now's the time. We're going to go ahead and lay down the predictions, what I have down at least, for who's going to win this year at BAFTA. Before we get too far in, it is worth noting that BAFTA last year was very prevalent as far as their picks at the Oscars. The top 8 categories all matched between what BAFTA picked and what the Oscars eventually picked. Really one of the major categories they got wrong, if you can call it a major category, was... It was the visual effects category, because I think Godzilla was not even nominated, if I remember right, by BAFTA. But otherwise, everything else, most of the major categories, yeah, they got right. Like, they got even a few upsets right, like animated feature, Boy and the Heron, over Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So, yeah, so we'll go ahead. Let's get started with the predictions here. I'll start with the Rising Star Award. This is voted on by the public. And I am a perennial voter in this as far as getting it wrong. I always get it wrong. I always go with the popular pick, and it's the popular pick that always loses. So it's usually the popular pick is someone who gets nominated, in this case, Mikey Madison. Even though I think by the odds here she's not quite favored to win at BAFTA, she could still win. She's within striking distance, I think, to win. Demi Moore is the front runner, but I would argue that Mikey, her movie over here, might be a little bit better loved than The Substance, but we'll see. So generally when that does happen, though, the public kind of goes away from that and they pick someone else. So in this case, I'm going with Marisa Abela, who is in second place by most odds, so I'm picking her to win the Rising Star Award, which, again, just kind of a fun one to pick there. Next up, we'll go through the tech categories, visual effects. This, I think, will still go to Dune Part 2. Let's not forget Dune Part 2, even though it's probably a one and done at the Oscars. And, by the way, it is worth noting, we did have the Visual Effects Society give out their top prize this week to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which really, I forgot to mention in the last video. I'm like, yeah, I probably should have mentioned that. Because every year, almost every time here, the last... the last 4 Apes movies, every time the Visual Effects Society will pick the Apes film, and then the Oscars pick something else. So it's lining up again, probably, to do that, so I would go ahead and pick Dune Part 2 at the Oscars, or one of the other 3 nominees. But here at BAFTA, yeah, Dune Part 2 I think will win, even though Better Man arguably had a bigger fan base over here in the UK than it has at in the US and some other regions around the world. With the notable exception, of course, of Australia, which is where the star is from. There is a very slight chance that one could upset. I don't think they'll pick Apes over here. But Dune Part 2, let's not forget it's in here for directing. You know, it did arguably a little better over here at BAFTA than it did at the Oscars. So, yeah, let's give that one there. Next up, let's do the sound category next, actually, if we're working our way up instead of down. This one, it's kind of close for me here. I was tempted to pick Wicked as the musical and stuff, but again, with Dune Part 2 being as popular as it is, I went ahead and stuck with Dune Part 2. Wicked, I think it'll still have a chance at some of the other categories coming up, but I would say, yeah, let's go ahead and pick Dune Part 2 here. It makes that race a little more interesting when we get to the Oscars. And this is one place, by the way, Complete Unknown is not nominated. Kind of part of the reason I mentioned the whole thing with visual effects last year, because as long as I recall correctly, it was Godzilla that missed last year here at BAFTA and then went on to win at the Oscars. So that was one of the few categories they couldn't get right if it was going to go to Godzilla. So if it does go to Complete Unknown for Best Sound at the Oscars, this is another spot that's like that. Makeup and hairstyling is next. Again, this could be a spot where maybe Wicked does pull off a slight upset here, but I still think The Substance is kind of starting to form as a little bit of a, maybe not a, can't miss in this category, but it's feeling more like it's pretty far ahead of some of the other contenders. So I don't think BAFTA is going to pick Wicked over it. I don't think they're going to pass it up. So I'm going to go with The Substance here for the makeup category. Best Score is up next, and this one I'm going with Conclave. Conclave is one of the most nominated films here at BAFTA. The Brutalist, I think, will go on to win the Oscar, but it'll be a little close here, and I do think Conclave will win here with, again, very slight chance that we could see Amelia Perez upset here. Some of the European voters that enjoyed the movie maybe a little more than American audiences. They might, I don't know if there's really way too many more spots they can give a win to Emilia Perez that they won't, overlap at the Oscars. But this could be one of those kind of rare spots. Let's do the design categories next. Production design, I'm going to go with The Brutalist here over Wicked. It's a close call. I think, again, with Wicked not doing quite as well over here as it does at the Oscars, The Brutalist, again, with the architecture being so key to the story and everything, I think this is something, again, even though The Brutalist is not up for like film editing over here as an example, or I guess they just call it editing, that's not film editing. I don't know. I just I get a sense that this is a spot where the Brutalist can strike. Costume design. This is where I think Wicked will get something. I think this is seemingly an Oscar that's preordained to go to Wicked, and it's probably going to be one of their easiest spots of the night to pick something up. Speaking of the editing category, that one's up next. Conclave is my pick here. Anora, though, is going to be my close second pick. I think Anora could become the frontrunner here for the Oscars in short order, especially with everything we saw last weekend with PGA and DGA. Film editing and screenplay will probably be the 4 wins for the film, but we'll see. They could, branch out a little bit more if Mikey can get a win. And then that's really about it. Again, I don't think Borisov is going to win. I don't think they're going to go 6 for 6 at the Oscars. But I think this is a spot where, Anora can possibly upset. But again, Conclave is more nominated. I think it's a more well-liked movie. I think it's a bigger frontrunner in some of these other races. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Conclave to win here for its editing. Cinematography, though, I'm going to go with The Brutalist. Conclave, I think, actually could win here. Dune Part 2 is kind of in play. Nosferatu just won at the Critics' Choice. And then Emilia Perez is your final nominee. Kind of a tougher category to pick this year as far as the nominees and stuff. So for myself, though, I think The Brutalist, the cinematography is a standout. Even though it couldn't win at the Critics' Choice Awards, I think, again, this is a spot that arguably did a little better here. They did get Felicity Jones in, for example, here at BAFTA versus Critics' Choice and a couple things like that. So, I think Brutalist will win this one. Next up is the Casting Award. This is one we're going to see come over to the Oscars here next year. Really going to be an interesting experiment next year to figure out, what kind of films they like to pick in this category. But for myself, I think it's a really close call. This is always a kind of tougher one to pick as well because there's not, outside of maybe Ensemble at Critics' Choice, or if SAG happens to fall before BAFTA with their Ensemble prize as well. It's kind of the only equivalence you get through the year outside of critics groups picking various ensembles. But they kind of have picked, let me remind myself here, and remind you guys, some of their last winners here. Best casting. They've gone with Joker, Rocks, West Side Story, Elvis, and The Holdovers. So not really like huge ensembles in a lot of these picks. Joker, it's a relatively middle-sized one. Rocks I haven't even seen, so I couldn't tell you that one. West Side Story was a little bit of a bigger ensemble with all the dancers and everybody. Elvis was kind of middle of the road. Holdovers was a relatively small cast, but This category, again, I'm snaving off a sneeze here, sorry. The Holdovers and everything is an example. This is not one where they're going for biggest cast. They're going for potentially who fits the roles best, which some would argue, okay, well, look at Elvis. I mean, is Tom Hanks really the best fit for the manager role and stuff and all that? So when it comes to that, I would say this year, amongst the nominees, the one that I would pick is probably Anora, with Conclave in second place, mostly just because of the popularity of the film. Kneecap I have in third, and then Complete Unknown, and then The Apprentice was the final nominee. Complete Unknown could be a sneaky pick here. Again, there's not a very obvious place to award the movie. It is up for Best Film, but for myself, I think Anora is the one I'm going to stick with. But again, this is one, I don't think I've really gotten this category right since they started doing it over here at BAFTA. For Best International Feature or Film Not in the English Language, My pick here is Emilia Perez. I am going with I'm Still Here at the Oscars, and I think I'm Still Here does have a chance to win at BAFTA. Again, I'm not sure how much of the controversy around the star of the movie and the director of the movie and some of the other factors around the movie and the making of it and stuff. I'm not sure how much of that is going to impact it here at BAFTA. I'm a little more convinced it's picked up more wind over in a lot of the states, so some of the voters over there, or over here, I should say, compared to over there. Over here, I think are a little more affected by it, a little more open to it, a little more affected by the news and everything. But BAFTA, I would argue, maybe has a little bit of a lesser impact. Emilia Perez is still a really well-liked movie here at BAFTA. It still did get a ton of nominations. So, I'm Still Here, for example, didn't get longlisted in the actress category. As I recall, I might have to look it up again, but I don't think it was even longlisted in the adapted screenplay race. And it wasn't up for best film or anything. So, it's also not as well liked over here, so I think that's a bigger thing here. But that being said, if I'm Still Here does pull off a win here at BAFTA for film not in the English language, then we know which way the wind is blowing, and we know that it's really going to be an uphill battle for Emilia Perez to get that Academy Award back. So we will see. Next up is animated feature, and this is a spot where I'm reminded of last year. I'm reminded of the international voting block and everything here, and I'm reminded of that. So I think Flow actually will win over here for animated feature. Another thing that's kind of key is you do have the another category where Wild Robot could potentially win. That's the Children and Family Film Prize. It's obviously not one that carries over to the Oscars, but that could be a spot where Wild Robot wins instead, and Flow can win here. Flow is also not up for film in the English language, so the very passionate voters over here at BAFTA for Flow, this is kind of one of the only spots to award it, unless it happens to win both this and the Children and Family Film category. But I think, just to kind of, hedge the bet a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and pick Flow here for animated feature, rather. And I think, Wild Robot would probably have better success over there in the children and family film category. Next up, we'll do the screenplay categories, starting with adapted screenplay. Again, we talked about it last time, but I think Conclave, this is going to be one of the easiest of the top eight categories to lock up already. That is presuming we don't see, that we do see an upset or two in some of the other categories here at BAFTA. But for now, I think Conclave, will win the Adapted Screenplay Prize. Again, arguably, it almost has this category to itself. There's really not a clear number two vote here at BAFTA. And, I think this is a spot where Conclave can easily win. For original screenplay, I've got Anora winning here, but again, I really have to be wary about the substance. A win here for the substance at BAFTA really is going to be a huge step forward for that movie and its chances to win this category. Because if I recall, the BAFTAs have gotten original screenplay correct, was it 4 of the last 5 years or something like that? Because they didn't get Banshees of Inisherin correct, but they got Anatomy of a Fall correct. Oh boy, hang on, now I'm struggling, hang on. Best original screenplay, here we go. Let's see here. Other than that, okay, yeah, sorry, it's 3 of the last 5, excuse me. Parasite, they got right. Promising Young Woman, they got right. And then Anatomy of a Fall, they got right. Licorice Pizza couldn't quite beat out Belfast at the 2021 awards, and then Banshees did not beat Everything Everywhere All at Once at the Oscars. So and that was a night where Banshees just was rolling through BAFTA. So again, this is a spot where it's like, okay, if Anora can start winning this prize for screenplay, then I think it can, kind of keep going and stuff. But for now, I think, again, this is going to be a spot where if the substance wins this, I'm probably going to start flipping and predicting the substance to win for its screenplay. And again, it's one, it's been one I've been kind of close on to switching, because it is the most original, the most original of the pack there as far as the nominees. But part of the reason, too, I'm sticking with Anora is outside of a couple instances here in the last 10 years or so, we've only seen a pair or so of Best Picture winners not take their screenplay. Let me remind myself here. Nomadland was one. Shape of Water was another one. Oppenheimer last year was another one. So it's pretty much been like Coda picked up screenplay. Everything Everywhere All at Once did. Parasite did. Green Book did. You can go back to Moonlight. Moonlight did. Spotlight did. So there you go. With that being said, move on to the acting category. Supporting actress. I think Zoe Saldana has arguably this is going to be the easier one for her to win of the rest of the televised awards. SAG could be a spot where Ariana Grande and the popularity of Wicked takes over. But that being said, I still really like Zoe's chances to win here. I don't think this is a spot where BAFTA is really smelling upset like Isabella Rossellini or Felicity Jones. I think they'll get some votes, but Zoe, I think this is going to be, again, arguably one of the brighter spots of the whole rest of the campaign here for Emilia Perez. So, yeah, that's my pick there. For supporting actor, this is a spot. I'm not going with the crowd here. I'm going with Guy Pearce to win for The Brutalist. Kieran, I think, will be close. A Real Pain, arguably, it could have done a little better here at BAFTA. As I recall, there was maybe one category where it was not long listed, where it probably should have gotten in. A few things here and there that it missed and everything. So I'm kind of a little unsure about that. Part of it is set in Europe. Most of the story is, so I don't know if that's enough to like save him. He's also, not been as available for as much of the campaigning. He's been doing rehearsals for Glengarry Glen Ross. Again, not that hasn't hurt, other contenders, in the past. But I think in this case, Guy Pearce with The Brutalist, even though he's an Aussie, he's not a straight-up Brit. If he was a straight-up Brit, then I think a lot of other people would pick him. But I think, again, this is a spot where I'm kind of smelling a little bit of an upset. So Guy Pearce to win there. In Best Actress, I like Demi Moore here for The Substance to win. She seems to have a lot of the trajectory going. It's a kind of a consolation prize for her long career and everything, with potential, of course, for a lot of more roles to come. But it's kind of you're somebody we still really, really like and everything. Even though you didn't really get a bunch of Oscar nominations in the past, you've never kind of been in that spot. You've been more, a few blockbusters, of course, here and there between Ghost, Few Good Men, et cetera, many, many more of them. But yeah, I think this is a spot where The Substance can win. But again, if Mikey Madison does win here, it's going to be kind of close, because it'll be interesting to see if she can continue that streak on to a SAG win as well the following weekend. So, yeah, a little bit of suspense left in that, but I do think it's Demi's to lose. For Best Actor, I like Adrian Brody here, also winning for The Brutalist. Ralph Fiennes has already won at BAFTA. Conclave, yes, will have its popularity in a few other categories. And I think this will be another spot again where The Brutalist, and overall, I think still really respected movie over here in the UK and everything. I think it's a spot where they can give it another win. And Adrian, let's not forget, kind of has an IOU again at a lot of these other award shows for not winning for The Pianist. Again, I don't really sense that like Timothée Chalamet has enough in there to split enough votes to get the win. And Rafe, even though, yes, he is really great in Conclave, and it is a movie that BAFTA arguably liked a little better than the Oscars, I don't see this as a spot to for him to win his second BAFTA just yet. Best Director, we'll do that one next. Brady Corbett, I think, will come back and win here at BAFTA. And this kind of feels like the last stretch for him. If he can't win here at BAFTA, I think any slim shot he still has at winning the Oscar, I think, is gone. Let's say if Edward Berger or Sean Baker win this, or even Jacques Audiard, really surprises us and upsets here, then yeah, you can go ahead and put the whole idea of The Brutalist coming back to win either Best Picture or Best Director at the Oscars. You can kind of put that to bed. But I do think, even though it was a really rough weekend for him last weekend, losing to a non-Oscar nominee at the Critics' Choice, and then losing to Sean Baker at DGA, and his movie losing to Anora at PGA, I think this is a spot still where the Brits, they really like the movie still. He's got a European sensibility about him, even though he is from the U.S., Sean Baker, I think, has a little bit of that European sensibility with his film as well. But something just tells me to stick with Brady Corbet here. Best British Film is up next, and again, I think this is a spot Conclave will win this. I don't really sense that there's enough momentum behind a movie like Kneecap, or maybe Hard Truths. One of those. I just don't get a sense that they have enough to take over Conclave. So this is a spot where Conclave can win. And it can kind of be a consolation prize, because I do think that the best film category is going to go to The Brutalist. Conclave, I think, still has a shot here. Anora obviously still has a shot here. And it's probably is down to these three. But I think The Brutalist, it is more of a straight line vote. BAFTA in the last few years really does not like to split their director and picture prizes. If we actually look at the... probably the last one was... let me go back here. Was the last one when the Daniels won? Where the hell's the directing category at? There it is. Because the Daniels won here, did they not? Oh, no, they went with Edward Berger. That's right. God, I forgot that. Let's pull up that one there. I did need to remind myself. I remembered it as Banshees winning Best Film, too. But no, they did go with All Quiet on the Western Front for Best Film. So they lined up there. They lined up last year with Oppenheimer. They also lined up the year before with Power of the Dog. Nomadland won in 2020. 1917 won for that year. Roma won for 2018. Really, the last time we had a split here was back in 2017. So that's Three Billboards winning for film, and then Best Director going to Guillermo del Toro for Shape of Water. Otherwise, before that, you got La La Land winning both. You had The Revenant winning both. And you had Boyhood winning both. You had another split in 2013, though, between 12 Years a Slave winning for film and Gravity winning for Best Director. So, yeah, when you break it down, the odds of a split happening, they just really have not been there in the last few years for BAFTA. They really do like to line up their picture and director the same way your typically picture drama film and your director at the Globes do line up as well. So in this case... I would still pick, in that case, The Brutalist, I think, will win. And Conclave, yes, as well-liked as it is over at BAFTA, I don't sense enough momentum for it to win both Best Film and Best British Film. It's an overlap we do see. I mean, don't get me wrong. We have, Three Billboards, as I recall, won that category and won Best Film. Let's look at some of the other ones here. Let's see. What was the other one here I was going to look at? King's Speech is another one. So, yeah, that's quite a ways in between. Then before that, I think you got to go back to... Oh, boy. Let me remind myself here. Was it maybe Gosford Park? No. Fellowship of the Ring won that year for Best Film. Okay. There's probably one in between here. I'm just forgetting what it was. But, again... Not a great history of lining up between Best Film and Best British Film. So yeah, that being said, though, again, if we're talking that same trajectory, if Sean Baker does win Best Director for Anora, then Anora probably has the Best Film win as well. And again, that's another spot where it's like, okay, yeah, if BAFTA is not even going to go off the beaten track, if you will, and kind of pick their own winner with The Brutalist, then we know Anora is pretty locked up for Best Picture. And at that rate, I would say, okay, there's a lot of industry support for Anora between DGA and PGA. Now with BAFTA, I would almost then be tempted, okay, Wicked, look out the next weekend, because your SAG Ensemble Prize is really in danger if Anora wins both Best Director and Best Picture at BAFTA. At BAFTA. So, yeah. Oh yeah, we've got some time here before SAG, so we won't. I don't think I don't think I moved anything in that prediction, anyways. So yeah. All right. Otherwise, let me think here. We've got WGA is this weekend as well. Let me remind myself here, because obviously the WGA has a few different things as far as eligibility. You have a few major contenders every year that are not eligible because of the writer's place or absence from the Writers Guild. But Sean Baker is included in the Writers Guild, so he is nominated for Nora. I fully expect Nora to pick up that one on the original screenplay prize. And for adapted screenplay, you only have we have 4 of the 5 are nominated for Best Picture, but only 2 of them are nominated at the Oscars. That's Nickel Boys and A Complete Unknown. And I think just given how well A Complete Unknown has done across the industry with all the various guilds, it's virtually gotten into almost every guild it could have, versus Nickel Boys, that's missing quite a few. It's like it's not up for SAG. I believe it missed at PGA. It did win a DGA for first time director, so it does have some support there. But it also, another key category that a lot of people suspected it could have been nominated at the Oscars as well was cinematography. The Cinematographers Guild with 7 nominations could not fit Nickel Boys in there. Obviously, there's a big difference there between that and its screenplay. It has been a very, very well-liked screenplay as well, though. So it's really, I think it's really, it's got a really good shot to upset A Complete Unknown. But that being said, I still think A Complete Unknown will win. It's tempting to pick Nickel Boys there, and I think I could just, come back next week and just say, we talked all about it for so long. And it happened, It feels like one of those potential wins. That's Saturday night that they hand that one out. So, or those awards out, I should say, because there's obviously multiple other awards. But yep. Okay, I think that's all I got for now. We'll be back again. For sure, we'll come back on Sunday. It might not be like immediately after BAFTA is over. We'll have to see, because again, right where I'm at, we've got some potential snowstorms coming in, starting tomorrow afternoon and then going into most of the day Saturday. Should let up by Sunday. Depending on my schedule, I might not be in town for that, and I might have to try to travel back through some of it if I have to. I hope I can avoid that, but I don't know. I've driven... quick story here. There was one year, because I went to college up in Moorhead, Minnesota, which for those who are unfamiliar, that's basically the next door neighbor to Fargo, North Dakota. It's basically, you cross a bridge, you go from one state to the next, and the 2 towns are right there. And I remember I was coming back up, and it's Easter, and if you live in most parts of the Midwest, Easter is usually like, late March, early April, so it's usually a spot where it's like, nope, all the snow's gone, or it's mostly gone, or, we're starting to see some days they get up into the 40, 50 degree Fahrenheit mark. It's like you start to kind of sense that it's like, oh, things will start to kind of warm up again finally after the frigid cold winters. And I remember that year I had to drive through a blizzard to go back to college after the after the Easter break, and there were cars in the ditch, there were cars slipping and sliding all over the road, and it was, very much one of the worst white-knuckle driving experiences I've had in my life. So I feel like that's one where it's like, yep, got out of that without a scratch, car didn't hit nothing hit me, so never went in the ditch, never really lost control for more than like half a second or so, where it's like, nope, just slide, always say, if you're not familiar with driving in wintry conditions, for those of you who live in the Southwest or something, it's like, nope, if you're ever stuck like that where it's like, oh, you're kind of losing traction, you just, if you're veering one way, you just kind of slowly turn the wheel and hope that you can just kind of guide it back to a spot where it's not so slick or something. That's kind of about all you can do, but depending on, how it's going. But anyways, that's all the stories for me. So we'll be back Sunday at some point after BAFTA is over. We'll talk about what won. We'll talk about, okay, is there any trajectory changes? Like if the Substance wins for screenplay, for example, and stuff like that. We'll talk about what that is, what all that stuff means going forward.